Welcome to the Hands-On Business Podcast, the place you come to get tips, tricks, and advice on growing your business. As you know, this is a podcast where you can hear real business leaders discussing systems and methodologies that they have actually used to help them catapult growth in their business. So I'm your podcast host, Hakeem Adebiyi, and I've grown several small businesses to multi-million pound enterprises. And what I noticed was that there wasn't any real place that focused on where I was, i.e. growing a small business. All the content seemed to be focused on big businesses, and often just a lot of theory, not practical, implementable advice. Now, if you are a subscriber, then you know that every so often I do a short, what I call business bites session, which is effectively me musing about a topic which I want to talk about. They are as much as an aid memoir to me as they are, I hope, useful to you. So today is one of those, and I'm going to talk about 4 steps to reach your target audience. Now, target audience is one of the key elements that any commercial person needs to be concerned about, because if you're trying to market a product or a service, then you need to ensure that you're putting it in front of the right people before you start doing anything else. Now, each one of the 4 points could be, and possibly will be in future, developed into a full podcast, but I thought this would serve as a good intro and overview for anyone in the commercial arena. As always, hopefully you'll find it useful. If you're in business, then you know that companies often have to walk a delicate tightrope when it comes to interacting with potential and current customers. On the one hand, you want to be genuine and build relationships, but on the other, you also want to make sure that every interaction is an opportunity to sell. Therefore, it can be tough to find that balance. And that's the whole point of this podcast. What we're trying to do is share some proven tactics for reaching your target audience without appearing and coming across as inauthentic. Step 1, define your target audience. Obviously, if you're trying to reach your target audience, you first have to understand who they are. What are their needs and wants? What motivates them? And what challenges do they face? Developing buyer personas, therefore, is an essential part of effective marketing. By understanding who your ideal customer is, you'll be able to develop messaging that resonates with them. You'll also be able to choose the right channels for reaching them. Now, this might seem like a bit of a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how many companies try to appeal to absolutely everyone. Now, when you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to anyone. Take the time to sit down and really think about who you are trying to reach. Consider their age, their gender, interests, educational levels, income level, and all that sort of stuff. The more specific you can be, the better. Once you have a good idea of who that target audience is, you can then move on to the next step, researching your target audience. Now that you know who you're trying to reach and you have your buyer personas developed, it's time to start digging into the data and do some research. See where they spend their time online and offline. What websites do they visit? What TV shows do they watch? What magazines do they read? Knowing where your target audience spends their time will help you reach them more effectively. So if you're trying to reach millennials, for example, you might want to focus your efforts on social media platforms like Snapchat and Instagram. If you're trying to reach business owners, however, LinkedIn would probably be a better bet. Go where your audience is going to be. So market research will also help you understand the size of your potential market, as well as trends within that market. And this information is essential for developing an effective marketing strategy. Now, once you understand who your target is and what they're interested in, it's time to start creating content that speaks to them. So moving on to step 3, create compelling content. Your content should be designed to educate, entertain, and engage your target audience. Always think CRQ. So C stands for creativity, and I don't mean that you have to try and be wacky or outlandish. What I'm talking about is that it needs to have a unique perspective that will capture the attention of the target audience that you're trying to get. Now, one way to be creative is to look at things from a different angle. Simple as that, really. So, for example, if everyone in your industry is writing blogs about the latest industry news, then actually try and take a step back, try and find a slightly different perspective than the prevailing view, and write from that angle, and always ensure that you write about how that news will actually impact your target audience and not just reporting that news. So if you do that, that's the creativity bit. Then the next bit is about the relevance. Our content has to address the needs and the interests of our target audience. We can determine what is relevant by listening to what they're saying on social media, reading industry news and blogs, etc., and conducting market research. So you need to make sure it's relevant to what actually is being spoken about. And then the last one, the Q stands for quality. Doesn't matter about everything else. If it's not quality, people aren't going to be interested in reading it. So it has to be well written, accurate, and shareable. And where you can put in references, that always helps. People are much more likely than ever before to share high quality content with their networks. So it's important that we give them something worth sharing. So because we've done our research and now know where our audience is hanging out, then we have to take that into consideration. So if they're spending time on social media sites, develop content that is shareable and interesting enough that they'll want to share it with their friends and followers. If they're reading certain blogs or magazines, develop content that is relevant and useful for them. The key here is to make sure that your content is targeted specifically for your target audience. If it's not relevant or useful to them, they won't bother reading it, and certainly they're not going to share it with others. However, don't lose sight of the fact that you want to be discussing your product or service, because remember at the beginning, we said it's that balance, isn't it? Giving good information, but also having an opportunity to sell. So to do this, try thinking about what benefit, not feature. And again, I could do and I probably will do a whole podcast on the difference between benefit and features, because lots of people focus on the features and not the benefit to their target audience. So I'll repeat that again. So to make sure that to be discussing your product and service, try thinking about what benefit, not feature, your product or service offers that target audience. Weave this into the engaging content that you're providing via the CRQ framework. Remember, creative, relevant, and quality. Now, what problem does your product solve? How does it make their life easier? Answering these simple questions in your content will help you craft a message that resonates with your target audience and gets them interested in what you have to offer. Lastly, now that you've done, you've defined your target audience, you've researched your target audience, you've given them relevant content, you've given them content that's compelling, you should also try and make sure that your content is optimized for search engines so that people can easily find it when they're looking for information related to your specific niche. So moving on to step 4, use targeted advertising. Okay, so you've done all the good stuff. You now know where your audience is. You know who they are. You've created good content, which you think will resonate with them. People often think, right, I've done my job. No, you now have to get that great content in front of your target audience consistently. Now, I'm a real fan of organic and getting this done organically through word of mouth, generating a buzz through personal connections, organizations, etc. But that's not easy. And that's a topic in and of itself. And I'll deal with that. And again, a separate podcast probably, because that'll be another one of my shorts. So organic, in my opinion, is the best way, but it takes time. So one of the quickest ways to get targeted advertising is doing it on platforms such as Google and Facebook using targeted ads. So by targeting ads to people who have already shown an interest in your niche, you'll be able to reach them with laser precision. Actually, Facebook is probably one of the best marketing platforms I've seen if you look at the back end in terms of the demographic detail you can get down to and make sure that your message gets in front of the people who are most likely to convert into customers or clients. The key with paid advertising, however, is not to overspend, and you need to know what you're doing, because only use this method if you are fairly confident that the people who will see your ads are actually part of your target audience and are interested in what you have to offer. Otherwise, you can spend a huge amount of money and get no return. So targeted ads is a real important part of your your mix if you want to get to those people quickly. If you have time and you like writing content and you like engaging with people and you really like, the word of mouth and the connection, the networking, then I would always suggest do it organically. So in conclusion, this is a whistle-stop tour, but effectively reaching your target audience doesn't have to be that difficult or require you to come across as inauthentic. By taking the time to get to know them, finding out where they'll like to spend their time and crafting a message that resonates with them, you can connect with them in a way that feels natural and organic and maybe even make a sale or two along the way. So there you have it, the gospel according to Hakeem Adebiyi. Don't forget to check out the show notes at www.thesalesaccelerationformula.com. And as I always say at the end, subscribe, like and share with your friends, your colleagues and anyone else who may be interested in what you've heard today. Most of all, always keep that feedback coming so that we can continue to improve and give you more of what you like. I hope you found this useful and that you can really start to implement some of what you heard. Keep listening and keep growing.